Today for joining us.
Great, thank you so much, Louise and Faye. So good evening, everyone. My name's Rena and I'm a student recruitment and access officer at Keel University. So my job is to work with young people in schools and colleges to help them kind of understand the options around higher education, the pathways, and a little bit about that information, advice and guidance if they do choose higher education as the pathway for them. As Louise said, I'm joined this evening by my colleague Jane, who's one of our disability advisors. And for the purpose of this presentation, what we're going to do is I'm just going to give a brief 10-minute overview, a little bit about higher education in general, before passing over to Jane, who's going to give us a bit more detail on that additional support that's available for students who might have additional needs. And obviously one of the reasons this came about is I came into the college at the big fair that's hosted in October and have been for the past few years as well. And it's a conversation that I had with Louise and Faye around actually a lot of young people who have additional needs and get support at schools and colleges actually feel afraid about going to university because they feel that support isn't there. And a lot of those young people who have the potential and who have the ability to go to university actually hold themselves back. So we had this idea of putting on this talk to actually hopefully encourage your young person to consider higher education and give you a little bit of information as well to how you could go along in that process. So first things first, I obviously wanted to touch on briefly, what is the benefits of higher education? So why do people go to university? Now, I've worked in higher education for almost 10 years, just coming up to this is my 9th year in higher education, and I've worked with thousands of students across the time. And me personally, it's very much about that kind of transformative experience that I think students have when going to university. But we can also categorize it into kind of 5 main areas, I would say. Now, the first is there are still jobs out there where you do need a degree, and these are known as graduate professions. They're mixed and varied, and there are lots of different pathways into certain jobs, but there are still jobs out there that having a degree is the kind of fastest route and the most kind of concrete route into getting into that profession. The main ones that always come up when I talk to students, things like doctors, lawyers, and teachers, but there are a wide variety of graduate professions that exist as well. My main piece of advice to every student I speak to is that it absolutely has to be something that you enjoy. If you are planning or thinking about university as an option, it's 3 or 4 years of your life where, it's a choice to go to university. And it's got to be a subject that you're interested in, you're curious about, you have questions, and you're kind of really driving to learn a bit more about it, rather than just a subject that someone's told you, oh, if you study that, you could get a good job in the future. Which is a big part of it. For some students, going to university does definitely lead to those big career prospects and better career prospects, because on average, students with a degree tend to progress up the career ladder much faster than those who don't. So that is a big part of it. But ultimately, I also still focus on those last 2 as big ones, about that transformative experience. Going to university is about students developing their transferable skills and more confidence and independence as well, because it really is almost like, that first step into adulthood. But also there's a big part of it about who goes to university. For a lot of our young people and a lot of people before going to university, a lot of our kind of space can be in our local area, in our local kind of backgrounds as such. So, the people who live down the road from us and those types of things. But actually the people who go to university come from all different backgrounds. I always joke that one of the most interesting experiences for me, I'm actually from Smethwick, so potentially some people on the call from the local area in Birmingham. My interesting and most weird experience was when I was in my first year of university. I shared a flat with another young woman who grew up in Devon and had grown up with a maid, and it was just life-changing and world-changing and perspective-changing for me to have someone with a completely different outlook on life. People from varied ages. It's not just 18-year-olds who go to university. Sometimes people go to university at 21, 25, 30, and also from all over the country and world. So it really does kind of shift a lot of things. And for those students who might be thinking at the moment, not sure what you want to do, the variety of courses available at higher education is really, really broad. So on average, they say at UCAS, it's around about 35,000 different courses that can be studied at higher education level. And there's so many different reasons for that. The first being the range of qualifications and the range of subjects is much broader at university level than they are at sixth form or college or GCSE level. And this slide here is just a quick example of that. You can see in that first column, there's option to carry on studying something that you may have already studied in your level 3 qualification. Or actually, you want to maybe explore something a little bit new, something that's related to a subject you've studied already, but in a slightly different area. Or maybe you want to carry on studying something that's similar, but with that kind of job in mind at the end of it. So what we'd call a vocational course. So this is just a quick sample here. So let's say, for example, you're interested in health and you're currently studying health and social care. Actually, some related courses might be something like diagnostic radiography, which is those who work in like X-ray imaging, MRI scanning in hospitals, or maybe even something like social work. So there really is quite a broad range there. There's lots of different considerations that students should be taking into account. There's things like entry requirements, what course content is being covered, the types of assessment methods. Again, for a lot of students who have additional needs, there is a concern that university is all exams and all essays, but actually there's been a real shift over the past 5 to 10 years, where actually a lot of universities now will use something called authentic assessment. So they'll try to mimic the types of assessments or the types of things a young person would be doing later on in their career. So for example, at Keele, we'll have students do presentations or blogs. We've even had students do podcasts as assessments to try and find different ways to kind of showcase their knowledge rather than just the traditional exams and essays. I encourage students to think about facilities and accreditation with their future plans. Now, if you are thinking about university as well, the course is the main thing, but the type of university that students could go to is really, really varied. There are quite large institutions in the country. One of the largest institutions is the University of Manchester, which has around about 45,000 students. And for some students, that's like absolutely where they want to go. But actually, for other students, they might be thinking a much more smaller institution that mimics their kind of local areas. So we've got some institutions with like 5,000 or 6,000 students. At Keele, we're kind of a medium-sized university with around about 12,000 students. So there are different types of unis to think about. And throughout your research, a few things that I would encourage you to look at is things like, what's the university well known for? Things like the location, accommodation, student support, which Jane will obviously speak about shortly in a moment. What types of campus safety is there? What kind of social things you can get involved in? And this picture here is one of my favourites because it really does showcase the wide variety and different number of universities that are available across the UK. So you can see Keele there, we're just in the middle of the country, around the Derby, University of Derby, University of Staffordshire, we've got Harper Adams nearby. But locally, as students who study in Birmingham, you have got 5 universities on your doorstep as well. So there's a really big range locally and further afield. So before I hand it over to Jane, I wanted to really quickly touch upon UCAS, and this is the online system that students would use to apply for university. Of course, the sixth form will provide lots of extra support with UCAS, but I just wanted to kind of bring your attention to it for a couple of reasons. So this online portal is where students will put in their course choices, they will track their offers and make choices and decisions on them. Now, if you're a parent or supporter who hasn't been to university themselves, don't worry, there is lots of advice and guidance for parents, and UCAS have a blog, a newsletter, top 10 tips, and really easy digestible information for you to have a look at that might help you with helping support your young person through this journey if it's something they want to do as well. Something I wanted to bring attention to, and Jane will also touch on this, is as part of the UCAS application, they have made fantastic strides over the past few years to really garner more information about students to ensure that we're supporting them as best as possible. And one of those things is the application does now include a section called More About You. And this is the opportunity for students to tell the university about any additional needs they may have so that it can be taken into account as part of a transition transition process. It's not used to decide whether they're made an offer. It's absolutely just there to help universities with ensuring that students have that support that they need, if they need it, if they want to progress onto university. So the final slide from me is just to give you a little bit of a timeline. So being in that first year of sixth form now is really the time for kind of research, having a look around, thinking about whether it's the right thing for you. There are open days that will be coming up. There'll be kind of webinars just like this to get that sense of things. And then applications open to be submitted in September. Students apply to 5 course choices. There are 2 deadlines. The first is in October, and that is for Oxford, Cambridge, medicine, dentistry, and veterinary courses. The second deadline is in January, and that's known as the equal consideration deadline, but I'm sure the sixth form will have a slightly earlier deadline to help ensure references are in line with that. Universities will process applications and make offers between January and through up to May, usually, but next year we are hoping that it will be by the end of March as well. Then students will reply to their offers in May or June and make their decisions, and then it comes round to results day in August. And throughout this process, there's lots of opportunities for students to be talking to universities about what they might need and things that they can be doing to prepare themselves. So now I'm hopefully gonna, well, I'm gonna hand over to Jane to start talking to you a little bit more in detail about support available at university. But I hope that was a nice kind of quick overview of what is kind of the ideas around university, really. So over to you, Jane. Oh, you're muted, Jane, sorry.
Hi, sorry about that. Hi everybody, my name is Jane and I'm one of the disability advisors at Keel University. I apologise now if you hear me say next slide, because I can't take control, so Rena will be doing the slide control for me. So just ignore me when I say next slide, but next slide please, Rena. So the aim of the session today is we will look at what is classed as a disability, because a lot of people aren't sure what it actually means. Some people aren't sure if their condition is classed as a disability. University homework, I say that in sort of just get prepared, things that you can do in advance to make things a lot easier for you. I'll also talk about what support is available. Again, independent living, be prepared. And then question time at the end. So if anyone has got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask us, or you can put it in the chat for us. Okay, next slide, please, Rena. So firstly, what is classed as a disability? Now, a disability is a physical or mental impairment which has a substantial or long-time adverse effect on a person's ability to carry out day-to-day activities, such as things like getting dressed in the morning that takes you a lot longer than it would usually, things like that. But we also look at disabilities as specific learning difficulties. That could include dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, dyscalculia, medical conditions. They can be MS, ME, diabetes, epilepsy, could also be IBS, Crohn's disease, anything that impacts you on a daily basis that you feel you need additional support for, basically. Blind, visually impaired, deaf, hearing impaired. Students with mental health difficulties, now that could include anxiety, depression, psychosis, mobility issues, and the autistic spectrum. Next slide, please. So do your homework. So I would advise that you go to some open days of the universities that you're interested in going to. Have a look round. I know I do a lot of the open days at Keele, and a lot of students get a feel for the campus that they want to be at, because some are open plan and public to other people, some are quite condensed. So have a look at the courses and where you think you'd like to go. Again, have a look at the course that you're interested in, and then decide again. You know, do a lot of homework to make sure you get the right course, that you're going to really enjoy it, because there's nothing worse than getting onto a course and finding that you're really struggling with it. Again, look at all the accommodation that's available. There's really big different types of accommodation available at universities. So I'd recommend that, again, on your open days, you will be able to go and view the accommodation that's on offer and the different types. So I would go and have a look at that. And I think I've already said it, the different campuses suit different people. So have a look, and then you'll get a feel of where you would like to go campus wise. Okay, next slide, please, Rena. So get prepared. So firstly, I would advise that you do disclose on your UCAS form. As Rena said, it doesn't go against you getting an offer for university. That's far from it. We just need to know so that if you disclose on your UCAS form, we then get notified and we can then contact you to ask you for evidence on what support you will need to help with your academic studies, whether that's specific accommodation, exam arrangements. There's a whole host of different things we can do, but we can't do it if we don't know who you are. Apply for student finance. Apply as early as possible, which they are open as of, I think, March, April in any year. Because it does take quite a long time to get student finance in place. And you'll be surprised how many students leave it till the last minute and they get to university and they still haven't got the student finance, because the later you leave it, the longer it takes as well. Also, if you do require special support, I would recommend you applying for disabled student allowance. That will provide you with a support package funded by Student Finance England. And the support package could include loads of different things to help with your studies. And I will go into that in a lot more detail a bit later on. If you do have support in place at the moment at your college, if you could get some evidence, even if it's just a letter off them, outlining the support you have in place now. One of the mistakes we find is that students think that colleges are talking to the universities and then they're not. So it would be helpful if you could get that information and send that to your university so that we can then put that support in place to make sure it's the same for you. And then again, once you've done all of that, talk to your chosen university. So if it was our university, you would send us the evidence. We would then email you and arrange a meeting, either Teams meeting, telephone meeting, whatever suits you best, to talk about the support needed, and we can help you with applying for DSA or anything else that you need help with. Okay, next one. So
Sorry about that, Jane. My computer got a little bit ahead of itself.
So disabled student allowance. So the disabled student allowance, as I said, is a support package funded by Student Finance England. And you'd have to, when you apply for student finance, you can apply online for disabled student allowance, and you would need to send them some medical evidence of your condition. You would then be asked to attend a needs assessment, and this assessment would be done online, and it's to discuss the support that you will need whilst you are attending university. And any issues that you think that might crop up whilst you're attending university, mention that to the assessor, and they will talk to you about what can be put in place to help you with that. There could be all sorts of different things there that would help you. They can, even if you were living off campus and you've got, say, anxiety and you can't travel on public transport, you could be given a taxi allowance to get you to the campus every day, so you wouldn't have to use public transport. When you've attended the assessment afterwards, you will get the support package. You will get equipment, so you could get things like if you've got a laptop that's older than 5 years, you would be given a laptop through Disabled Student Allowance. You do have to contribute £200 towards the laptop, but it would be under warranty for the duration of your course. So if anything happened to the laptop, it would be repaired or replaced. It would be yours to keep at the end of your academic studies, and it is normally a really good spec for the laptop. You may be given assistive technology software. Again, that could be anything. It could be Grammarly for spelling. It could be mind mapping for organisation. Again, based on your different needs. You would be given a general allowance for printing costs. You could be given a travel allowance, like I said, for taxis. Excuse me. You could also be given I'm trying to think what it is now. That's just gone totally out of my brain. General allowance, travel allowance, and non-medical helpers allowance. That's it. The non-medical helpers allowance, that's for things like if you've got a mental health disability, you would be given a specialist mentor, and they would meet with you for at least 1 hour a week during term time, and that could be your preference, face to face or online, and they help you with focus, motivation and organisation, and they give you strategies and coping mechanisms as well. If you have a learning disability, such as dyslexia, ADHD, you could also be given a study skills tutor. And again, that would be for at least 1 hour a week. And that would be to help you with your academic studies. And that could be writing essays, referencing, all sorts of different things that you need help with. They would be there to help you with. And a lot of students I work with at Keele, they find this support really, really useful. So then after the needs assessment, we'd be sent a report with all the recommended support on. We would implement all that support and notify all the different people at university, whether it be the exams, your school, accommodation. We would do all of that, and then we would contact you for a review meeting just to discuss the support that we put in place to ensure that everything when you get to university is the right support for you. And then after the report, you would then get a funding approval letter, which would tell you who would be providing your equipment, who's providing your assistive technology training, and who would be providing you non-medical help support. And we could help you arrange all of those things. You're not on your own. We're here to help you with all of that. So what does other support at Keele look like? Just bear with me a second. I'm going faster than I thought I was. So the different support we have at Keele, as an example, we have you'll have your academic mentor, you'll have a disability advisor that will help with anything related to disability. Every school has a disability inclusion tutor that can help with anything academic related to the school. You also, in your halls of residence, you have an out of hours team. So if anything crops up, they're there from 6 o'clock at night till 8 o'clock in the morning. We also have a counselling and mental health team at Keel University. And then we also have the student experience and support officers. So there's a lot of other support there to help you. There's also the student financial team that can help with any student finance issues. So there's a lot of support that's there for you. And then reasonable adjustments. It would all be based on your needs, but we look at putting support in. We could put in ensuite accommodation for you. It could be some kind of specific accommodation for you, again, based on your needs. It could be exam arrangements. It could be teaching adjustments. There's things like 25% extra time for exams, rest breaks in exams. Could be teaching material in advance. It could be that you have a condition where at times you are absent from a university, whether it's due to hospital appointments or you have a flare up and you can't attend. In that case, you would have an adjustment in so you were not marked down for being absent, and you would also be sent any teaching material so that you don't miss out any of your work whilst you're off ill. The other thing we do arrange at Keel University is diagnostic assessments. So any student that suspects they may have a learning difficulty, but they've never been tested for it before, you can be tested whilst you're at university. And at Keele, there is a cost. We subsidise half the cost towards the diagnostic assessment, and the assessment takes an hour and a half. And then once you've got your diagnostic assessment, that's with you for the rest of your life, and that's your diagnosis. The only thing I would say is that if you did want an ADHD diagnosis, if you went through our route, it would be classed as an educational ADHD diagnosis. So if you were looking at getting medication for the diagnosis, you would still have to go down the NHS route. And I am aware there is quite a long waiting list for the NHS. So it is something you could look at even whilst you're waiting for the NHS waiting list, is to go down this route to at least get some support whilst you're waiting for the NHS. Okay, Rena? So just wanted to get you a bit more prepared. So emails, get in the habit of checking on a regular basis. We have it's really easy to just forget, and you do get bombarded with emails when you get to university. So please once you know what university you're going to, get in the habit of start checking them on a regular basis. I would also advise that you learn basic living skills to live independently. Maybe it's just cooking a few things, get to know some recipes that are really easy, but you know what you can cook. And also washing, do a bit of washing so you're not taking all your washing back home for your parents at the weekend. You learn to do it on your own. I would also advise that you make your accommodation your own. Check the license agreement for what you can and can't take with you, but make it your own safe space. So it's somewhere that at the end of a busy day, you can go back there and you feel safe and you feel at home, and it will just make things a lot easier settling in at university when you've got your home comforts with you. And then welcome week, I would advise that you attend summer welcome week if you can. It's just to get you used to university life, and it's putting things on, and it's more about making friends, getting to know people, learning in a new environment, and just getting yourself familiar with the campus and where things are on campus. And I think after welcome week, once you've made a few things will be a lot easier for you. Okay, Rena? So I think I've gone through this a bit faster than I thought I was going to. So thank you for listening to me. Please let me know if you've got any questions. I think, Lorena, you might have something else to say now, yeah?
Fab, thank you, Jane. So I thought whilst giving everyone a couple of moments to have a think about any questions that they might have at all, obviously this evening's presentation, as we are giving an example of some of the Keele perspective. Jane has worked at Keel University for 21 years, so can give you a really good kind of spectrum of the various things that we've got. But obviously what I wanted to say is that we're not the only university that obviously offer these things. In my experience, I've worked at 5 higher education universities, and a lot of this support is there across the board. You'll see in the chat that Faye and Louise are just adding in some additional links in for you to kind of have a look at a few extra things. I think obviously the idea with this evening is just to have a think about, obviously getting yourself comfortable with the idea of your young person potentially going off to university as well. And obviously trying to be involved in that research. It is a big deal for your young person and for you as parents as well, particularly if your young person has additional needs and is still learning to cope with those types of things as well. As I said, Faye's popped in quite a good range of online resources. There is lots of different things. Obviously, there's stuff for parents and supporters, but there's stuff for your young person as well. I'm sure for any students who might be listening on the call, you might be following a student who's on TikTok or on Instagram, who's putting on updates about their experience of higher education and how they're kind of going through things. And obviously, hopefully that's giving you some confidence about thinking about higher education as well. Ultimately, the way I kind of see it and what is always been my aim in my career is trying to highlight that university should be an option for those who want it to be. I completely recognise that for a lot of young people, everyone might have their own personal and individual barriers. However, as Jane's kind of referred to in a lot of her type about the support, sometimes it's about not being afraid to ask those questions. We, of course, will try to empower the young people that we work with to ask those questions. But sometimes, again, if as a young person you've got an additional need, maybe it's about as a parent or supporter, just kind of thinking about how you can ask those questions to empower your young person, or to kind of make sure you've got all of that information that you need necessary. As Jane said, you know, we've given some Keel examples, but by going to open days, you can ask questions of the lecturers. You can ask, as Jane said, as we have at Keel, student support, to my knowledge, will always be available on an open day to have these conversations. After you've got an offer for a university, you get the opportunity to go on what we call an offer holder day or an applicant visit day, and student support are always available on those dates as well. And it might be that some universities have slightly different things, and that means that can also be a decision-making factor for you. And I've often met some students who've said, well, actually, I decided to go to this uni because they had this bit of support that my other choice didn't have. And that is absolutely fine. And that's what's going to be key for you and your young person, particularly over the next year and a half or so. And it's just about kind of having a look at various things. So I can see that we've had a pre-asked question that's just come through in the chat. So Jane, what help would be available for students who are still awaiting assessment for diagnosis following a doctor's referral? Can an evidence letter be requested from doctor stating issues or traits, etc., if they're waiting for a referral? And would this help gaining any support at university?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. If you've been referred and you're still waiting a diagnosis, so long as you can obtain a letter confirming that that's the case, that's sufficient evidence for us, because we class that as a working diagnosis, and not just us, Student Finance England, when you're applying for disabled student allowance, they class that as a working diagnosis as well. So that would be accepted as evidence.
That's really helpful. Rena, I don't know if you've got any further to add. Have you got anything else to add before we ask a couple of questions?
No, that was pretty much it. So yeah, ready to go into the question portion, really. And obviously happy to answer questions about general things. Also happy to have said kind of any Keel specific or general, and obviously Jane for any of our student support style questions as well.
That's lovely, thank you. We haven't got any questions coming in on the chat, but I would encourage any students or parents to type anything in the chat that you feel that you can ask. Perhaps I can just draw attention whilst we are waiting, if there are any questions, to a couple of things that Jane and yourself mentioned, Rena. And I think that visiting the universities, because they are so diverse in terms of that whether they're a campus university or a city university, and I think, as Jane alluded to, the accommodation differences and things like that, it actually is very much about how you feel when you're there. And I think that actually in your formative years, in addition to any obviously concerns that anybody may have about disabilities or anything else, I think it is about feeling really comfortable. And what I would say is that research, initial research, the homework you referred to, is really critical. and give access to parents as well as students to Unifrog, our platform that we use. And on there, the UK University section is a really good tool for researching a range of university subjects, combinations of subjects, but also then using the filter button, parents and students can filter if they want to go to a big city, or whether they want a sandwich course where they might have a year in industry or a year abroad if they're feeling brave. And actually the support is there from the universities then at Open Day, as I know that Rena and Jane have said, to kind of talk all of those things through. And I think that initial research, collecting your ideas, going and visiting the Open Days is really critical to feeling comfortable that from a parent's perspective that your child is supported, but from a student perspective that you are really set up and ready to start that university. I liked the idea of doing some washing. I'd have loved it if my children had learnt to iron before they went away to university, but unfortunately they didn't. So that came home. But I think those learning sort of just some of those basics to be comfortable is a great idea. Certainly all of the universities are different, but there are so many things that I know you've mentioned about Keele that are replicated in many of those other universities. Most of them have an excellent track record, but again, ask all those questions on Open Day to make sure that everything that you need to know is accommodated. Most universities' websites also have a chat function these days where you can ask some simple questions there. What I would say is Keele is an amazing university. I've known Rena for some time, and Faye and I have had lots to do with Keele over the years, and Jane has been there 21 years. And as mentioned, and I would suggest that you go and see Keele alongside many of those other universities to get a real feel for what it has to offer. I think the importance that you mentioned, Rena, of the diversity of 35,000 courses across the UK means that the most traditional courses that we can think of are only just literally a smattering of those that are available. And actually what is really important is, if you're thinking of something like nursing, to look at all of those other healthcare things. If you're looking at law, to look at the vast range of courses, you know, with criminology and so many others. So it is actually looking at the variety and expanse of those courses. We haven't got any further questions at the moment, and one of the things I would say is, please, to students and parents, if you have any further questions that you would like us to ask either Rena or Jane when we finish the presentation, please email careers@keds.ac.uk, which I think Faye will be putting in the chat. We can ask Rena and Jane, or if you have any conversations that you'd like to have with Faye or myself regarding either from a student perspective or parents, then please do pop in and see us or email us on the careers@keds.ac.uk. I don't want to keep anybody longer than we need to. We've had a wonderful presentation from both of you. Thank you very much indeed. This evening hopefully has been to the point, and we do encourage all students to engage with the careers team across the remainder of year 12 and into year 13 by coming along to a careers one-to-one or work experience workshop. Lots and lots of information that we have available on our website under the careers tab for students and parents. Thank you so much to both of you for coming this evening. We shall look forward to seeing you on our next visit to Keele and when you're next here at King Ed's, which I imagine will be at our HE fair in October.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having us, Louise and Faye. Yeah. And I hope this has been useful for any of the parents and young people on the call as well. Best of luck with your research. And as said, kind of take it at your own pace, because there will be things out there available for you if you are interested in going into HE.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, both. And good night to you and good night to everybody on this call. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.